ちょうど体を動かしたかったところだ。ああ、わかった。凍りつけ、私の血のごとく。ゴミのように惨めに果てろ。
Our code picture. Once again, we'll have to tell it that our code contains binary data rather than text. Okay, looks good. And yeah, it decoded perfectly. This executable that we're playing right now was just decoded from a QR code. And now it's time for the ultimate test. The whole point of a QR code is that it can be easily scanned in from the real world with just a camera. So here I go printing it out. Now let's fire up Z-Bar Cam. Ew, gross, who's that? It took a moment to recognize, but it eventually made an executable, and... Oh. Huh. It doesn't work. Maybe it just didn't read properly? It did seem to have some trouble with the paper not being flat, so I tried to use cardboard to keep it straight. No, it's still broken. What happened? It read perfectly fine from the image, but not from the webcam? Something's definitely wrong. When I run it from the command line, it just says segmentation fault, so it must be getting corrupted somewhere. It was so damn close. I decided to create a new QR code with the error correction turned up. Before it was set to low, I'm setting it to Q, which is the highest that can still fit. Error correction inherently requires more data, so there is a limit to how much we can have. I didn't expect this to do much, since QR code error correction is intended more for if the code gets scratched or damaged somehow, but I had to try it. Nope, still not working. This is so weird. How could it decode perfectly from the original image, but not now? I decided to bring out the hex editor and compare the executables side by side. From there, it was immediately clear what was wrong. You see this 0A byte here in the original? In the executable retrieved from the QR code, that byte has magically become 2, 0D and 0A. Now those of you who know ASCII already know what's happened here, but in case you don't, you know how we often tend to break up language into paragraphs or separate lines? Well, computers aren't made of lines. They don't really have a way of doing this internally. So usually text is stored like this. One long, contiguous stream with a special character where the line breaks go so that when it draws that text on the screen, for us, it knows how to split the text into the lines that we made. This, by the way, doesn't include automatic word wrapping since the computer can calculate that on the fly. This only applies to line and paragraph breaks specifically. This special character is called a new line or line ending, and it's not really a dot like this, it's a control byte that you never see. But what byte that is specifically is hard to pinpoint because not everyone could agree on that. Today, there are only really 2 line endings you'll ever see. Unix-based systems, so Mac, Linux, iOS, and Android, all use a single character called a line feed, which is in hex byte 0A. Programmers will know this better as \n. Windows, however, has historically used a 2-byte sequence. They also use a line feed, but it's preceded by a carriage return, 0D in hex or \r in code. So basically, Unix line endings look like this, and Windows line endings look like this. While most software these days can understand both line endings, a handful still can't. Up until 2018, Windows Notepad only acknowledged Windows line endings, which is why you sometimes open text documents with it that would look like this. As such, it's not uncommon for some programs to automatically convert line endings to whatever system you're using. Are you starting to see what's happened? Ordinarily, you wouldn't notice this, since software that handles both will recognize either type, and software that doesn't will magically work now that the line endings are correct. But our Snake game isn't text. We know this, but something somewhere doesn't, and is inserting carriage returns into what's actually precise machine code. It's no wonder it just crashes on startup. We already know ZBar image can decode our executable fine, so it must be something with ZBar cam? Some sort of bug, maybe? Well, the joys of open source software allow us to dive into the code and see what's wrong for ourselves, and I pretty quickly found that the stood out wasn't being set to binary mode. Which basically means ZBar cam gave no indication that its output wasn't text, so Windows assumed that it was. Let's fix that up and try it again. And I've gone back to my original QR code for this. Alright, we've got our executable, and yes, there it is! A game that streamed in from a piece of paper through the webcam. I can even write a little script to open Snake automatically after the read. Let me try it out on my laptop, which has never seen this Snake executable before. Haha, it's like a magic trick.
So if you ask me, this is unbelievably cool. Sure, it doesn't serve much practical purpose, but just the fact that QR codes, which are usually relegated to some McDonald's website or something, could sort of function like a small game cartridge. I think that's really cool.
The security implications do worry me though. Obviously, QR codes could always link to malicious websites, but if you can store malware directly into the code, which clearly you can, that has the potential to be even more dangerous. I can already imagine a code exploiting an Android camera bug or whatever to trigger some arbitrary code execution and steal your passwords and banking information. Hopefully not. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you'd like to play around with this QR code, check out the link in the description. I have the code, the reader program with the fix I wrote in, and a step-by-step tutorial if you want to play Snake from the QR code.
As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Ciao.
少し頭を冷やせ。
This video is brought to you by Micro Center. Stay tuned to see how you can get a free SSD. It's a wonderful day to mod an Xbox, and a wonderful outfit as well. If you know me, you know I love the original Xbox, and just recently I fixed this Xbox on this channel. You may remember it as the Jesus box. I never called it that, but I'm gonna call it that now. But while I've always loved the original Xbox, there is something about it that I've always not loved, and that is how noisy it is. Check this out. It's just a bit of a noisy boy. It's louder than pretty much any other console of its generation, except for maybe the Dreamcast's disk drive. Now there are two noise-making components in the Xbox. The first is obviously the hard drive. It's got a full-size, 3.5-inch, 20-year-old ID hard drive in there, and despite Steve Jobs' best efforts to make his late 90s computers quiet, there was no getting around having one of these. Obviously they weren't this bad when they were new, but the point is we can do a lot better today. The second is the fan at the back, which functions as a case fan, CPU fan, and even kind of a GPU fan, and as such contributes just as much noise, if not more, than the hard drive, depending on what brand and model hard drive your Xbox got. And if you happen to have an early 1.0 model Xbox, you also got a dedicated GPU fan, which makes it even noisier. I'm not kidding, listen to how this sounds. But yeah, it's loud. And I got to thinking, well, there must be a way to, let's say, tone down the noise. I'm gonna try, in this video, to make this Xbox as quiet as possible. Should be fairly straightforward since we just need to replace two components, but before we can get started on any of that, we do need to mod this thing. Firstly, just because it's a good idea. I mean, if your Xbox isn't modded, are you even enjoying your life? But secondly, because your Xbox pretty much has to be modded for you to be able to replace the hard drive. This is because Xbox hard drives are password protected, you know, to prevent users from modding it. As such, it'll also suspect foul play if the hard drive isn't locked or is locked with the wrong password. And to make it even more complicated, each Xbox has a unique, randomly generated password, so there's no way to know what it is beforehand. While you can build a device to pull the password from the Xbox motherboard, the easiest way really is modding. Either hard modding with a mod chip or TSOP flash to remove the check altogether, or soft modding which lets you retrieve the password so you can lock your replacement drive in a way the Xbox will be happy with. I won't get too much into modding here because it's not really the point of this video, but if you're interested in a modded OG Xbox, I highly recommend checking out the website consolemods.org. It collects all of the Xbox modding information scattered throughout hacking forums over the last 20 years into one convenient wiki. I used it for this video and can confirm it's a great resource for anything you want to do with your Xbox. I decided to use the GameSave exploit soft mod, which essentially means loading up an exploitable game, crashing it with a corrupted save file, taking control of execution, and installing a soft mod to the hard drive. All pretty simple as long as you can get it to load a game. Yeah, I forgot this Xbox's DVD drive was dead, or at least seemed to be. And not just the drive tray belt, I mean, that would be an easy fix, but even once I got the disc in, it still didn't want to read it. Do I jump ship to the hot swap method, or do I use a drive from another Xbox? I might use another drive. Well, working in retro tech is never boring. Retro tech is like a box of chocolates. You never know what's gonna fall apart next. So off I went, pulling a known working drive from another Xbox and temporarily transplanting it into this one. Why have they put this here? Why have they put this damn scrotum on it? Sitting a little awkwardly, but otherwise that should work. Look at that. And then we never need a DVD drive again. Thankfully, Xbox DVD drives weren't password protected and paired to each individual motherboard. At least not yet. Apart from the DVD drive transplant, the exploit went very smoothly, and soon we had a soft-modded Xbox and, crucially, a copy of the EEPROM containing the unique hard drive password. No dramas, no whacking worries. Okay, and our Xbox is fully modded. So step number one is going to be replacing this hard drive. And to do that, I will need a few bits and pieces. And to get these parts, I went to Micro Center, who were kind enough to sponsor this video. We all know that electronics stores are becoming a rare breed in the face of online delivery, but I think that's a real shame because if I can pick something up locally on the same day, I almost always prefer to. There's nothing worse than working on a project, discovering you need a part, and then having to put the project on hold for days while you wait for that part to be delivered. Micro Center's shelves are packed with everything electronics and computer related you'd ever need. Even just walking around and looking at parts got me dreaming of my next computer build, and I'm not even planning to build anytime soon. And even if you're not into custom PCs, Micro Center has a huge selection of pre-built computers too. So if you're on the lookout for a new computer, new components, new accessories, or anything like that, I highly recommend checking out Micro Center online or locally if you have one nearby. They're even offering a free 240GB SSD to new customers. Check out the link in the description for more details. And now back to the Xbox. Okay, so first off, what hard drive am I going to put in here? Well, I've decided I'm going to go all out, put in a Samsung 120GB SSD. Now, you're probably thinking two things. One, an SSD, it's too fast. It's overkill. The Xbox drive bus isn't fast enough to take advantage of the speed of an SSD. And you're right, but keep in mind the goal of this project is as quiet as possible. And no matter what size, no matter how new a mechanical hard drive is, it will always be louder than an SSD. You also might be thinking, 120GB, that seems a little bit small, but honestly, I'm not the kind of person who just loads my Xbox with like 100 games. I'm pretty happy with just 5 to 10 of my favorites. So honestly, 120 is fine, and it will be absolutely silent. But of course, SSDs like this have SATA connections, not the old IDE of the Xbox. So, needed to pick up a SATA to IDE bridge board. Hey guys, welcome to my unboxing video. And we're done. That's essentially it. Now, another thing I got was this 2.5-inch to 3.5-inch mounting kit adapter thing. This is a 3.5-inch mechanical drive, but SSD is almost always a 2.5-inch drive, which means it won't automatically just kind of fit in there. We could just tape it down, but I thought it would be neater to get a proper adapter. I'm now noticing it might not actually work because this is mounted in the middle and this moves it off to the side. I guess we'll find out. Let's do a test fit, shall we? Right. Well, it looks like tape it is. If I was willing to spend a little bit more, I could have gotten this adapter, which is considerably smaller and quite likely would have let me use the mounting kit, but it's fine. So at this point, I made a minor mistake. I tried to use an Xbox homebrew tool called Chimp, don't ask, I didn't name it, which is supposed to allow you to easily upgrade an Xbox hard drive without needing a PC. However, I couldn't get the Xbox to pick up the new drive at all. It turns out I missed the step where if you're using a SATA adapter, you're meant to replace the Xbox's 40-wire IDE cable for an 80-wire one. Apparently this has something to do with the 80-wire cable having less interference and crosstalk, and therefore being better able to handle the faster speeds that come with SATA drives. So while I waited to get one of those, I decided to focus on the second noise-making Xbox component. Okay, so we're focusing primarily on this at the back here, the fan. Let me remind you all of what this sounds like now. Noisy. So what I got to replace it was this Nexus something 70mm fan. It brands itself as a real silent case fan and the world's quietest fans. This is pretty frequently recommended as something that is more or less a drop-in replacement, so let's give it a shot, shall we? It's actually slightly smaller than the original fan. This is awkwardly, I believe, a 72mm fan, which I think is a non-standard size. This is a 70mm fan, so it's slightly smaller, but 2mm, tiny. Not that I have familiarity with anything that's only 2mm, but anyway. Now, the original fan is held in just with two little pegs on the side. Oh. let's unplug this before I accidentally electrocute myself. They are actually quite sturdy, so I'm going to use a flathead screwdriver. Again, being quite careful. Okay, and it is out, and oh boy. Well, clearly my dusting job in the last episode wasn't very thorough. I'll just wipe that down real quick. Hey guys, welcome to my unboxing video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Okay, so I'm here that this should basically just drop in. And it pretty much does. Cool. God, this is such a mess. And it came like this. The cable is obviously a lot longer because it's designed for real computers. As you can see, the cable on the original Xbox was extremely, extremely short. Okay, here we go. Powering it on. Actually, I have to plug it in first. Okay, now, powering it on. Whoa, I can barely hear that at all. It is spinning. It is working. I can feel it. But yeah, that's way quieter. That is so cool. It's not even close to the loudness of the other one. Just a reminder of what it sounded like before. That's amazing. Okay, real quick, if we're gonna make this a permanent installation, I do want to untangle these wires, straighten them out, and I'm gonna put a cable tie on them. Okay, nice and neat. The extra cable mass does make it a little bit tougher to put the DVD drive in. You kind of have to shove it into its corner, but it can be done. There we go. I was warned about this. It is slightly looser than the original fan was in the case. I don't think it's that much of a problem because the hard drive caddy is kind of keeping it in the same place, and as long as it's not rattling a ton, I think it's probably not too bad. So all we need to finish it off now is that 80-wire IDE cable. And we're back, and it is a great day because I finally have my 80-pin IDE cable. So why don't we go ahead and we'll try to install it. When working with Xboxes, you tend to do this very often. Removing hard drives, removing DVD drives. Okay. Now, the original Xbox IDE cable is actually very close to the kind of cable you'd find in a PC, where you have 3 connectors, 2 of which are close together. Traditionally, the long stretch would go to the motherboard, and the 2 close together would connect to up to 2 devices. The Xbox uses it backwards, with the long stretch going to the hard drive, which is perfectly permissible with IDE. The only way it won't work is the middle one going to the motherboard, which for some reason I do remember being a problem once for me back in the day. But the cable is slightly different in that all the connectors are upside down. You see these pegs for helping with alignment, they're usually on the other side. That means a regular cable does end up having to do some extra loops and folds that make it far less neat than the original cable. But thankfully the new one is longer so we can get away with it. I guess I could split up a bunch of the wires so they can be twisted around easier. That was a common trick, but whatever. All I can say is it does make me appreciate how far we've come not having to deal with so many wide, bulky parallel cables anymore. Looks a mess, but hopefully it tastes great. I'm turning it on now. Whoa. I didn't even know I turned it on for a second there. That was
ちょ
so
うど体を
quiet.
動かしたかったところだ。
Oh, please work.
あ
Please
あ、わかっ
work.
た。ゴミのように惨めに果てろ。
Whoa. Okay, we got a Microsoft logo. Whoa. Okay, look at that. Oh, I love that.
こう
Oh,
つけ
that. It's interesting that it took a while to start. I almost want to try that again just to see if it was like a fluke or not. Going on a second time. I'll never get over how quiet that is. It's just astounding. Very serene, very zen. Hell, maybe the Xbox wouldn't have failed in Japan if it was this quiet. Huh. It seems like it might just take that long to start up now. And the irony is, this is an SSD. I guess I gotta load a game onto it, right? It doesn't seem to be much slower, at least from the FTP speed. I'm getting about 11 megabytes a second, which seems at least the same, if not a little faster than usual. So it doesn't seem to be slower overall, just on startup, I think. It's not ideal, but I don't really mind waiting another 5 to 10 seconds to start up. I mean, I have RGH and Xbox 360 before, so clearly
私
I
の血
don't.
のごとく。
Nice. Okay, we're done. Okay. Ooh, yeah. There we go, the most important game in the world. Yes.
少し
Oh,
頭
that's
を
so
冷
cool.
やせ。
Oh, that's so cool. It's running off an SSD and it's quiet. You can hear me whisper over the Xbox. I love that. I love that so much. Okay, let's go ahead and clean this up.
ゴミのように惨めに果てろ。
So because of how wide the adapter is and the way the plastic kind of narrows around the screw holes, I had to mount it a little diagonally. But the tape seems to be doing a good job. It didn't budge, putting some mild pressure on it, so I think it should be secure for any bumps or shakes the Xbox is likely to experience. I just have to stuff this IDE cable in without ruining it. Okay, let's see if it'll close up. Alright. Okay. Look at that.
敵の
Let's
顔
plug it all
が
back
覚えて
in
る。
and admire the sound once more. Now there is one other thing that we should look at. I mentioned it before that this replacement fan is slightly smaller than the original, so we should look at whether the temperatures are going out of control. So the Xbox fan's default speed is about 20%, or alternatively it can go up to 5 times faster. In fact, let's try that out. Let's turn up all the way, let's try 5x. Okay, that is louder. Still only about as loud as the original fan was at 20%. Now I've heard people recommend that with this fan you should double the speed to ensure it provides adequate cooling since it's a little smaller. Let's see what that sounds like.
ちょうど
Yeah, it's
体を
pretty
動
quiet,
かしたか
especially
ったとこ
because
ろ
it's very unlikely that you'd be playing Xbox with the console sitting right in front of you. Usually, you know, it's going to be a couple meters away next to your TV, right? But for the sake of science, I'm going to do some testing myself. I'm going to compare with a very similar, also 1.6 Xbox, which still has its original fan. First, I left each Xbox at its dashboard for about an hour to get a good idea of each one's idle temperature. The stock fan maintained a pretty stable 55 degrees Celsius, while the new fan slowly crept up and eventually got as high as 68 degrees Celsius, and quite possibly would have kept creeping up forever until either the CPU throttled down or the system just shut itself off. So I think I can safely agree with those recommendations that the new fan at the same speed is just not sufficiently cooling the CPU. I set it to 2x and almost immediately it started cooling back down, seeming to stabilize around 61 degrees Celsius. This is still warmer than the stock fan, but still a fairly acceptable temperature to idle at. Let's play some games. Oh, you have to play video games? What a hard job. After about 20 minutes of Burnout 3, the Xbox with the stock fan rose only 2 degrees to 57 degrees Celsius. And I'm happy to say at 2x, the new fan performed very similarly, only seeming to rise 1 degree to 62 degrees Celsius. Again, warmer than the stock fan, but not dangerously so. So I think we can safely say running at 2x is indeed your best bet with this fan. It'll be a little bit warmer, but a lot quieter and doesn't seem to be in any danger of overheating. Just for fun, I turned the fan all the way up to 5x and played another 20 minutes of Burnout 3. This almost certainly defeats the purpose of this mod at all because the result is almost as noisy as the stock fan anyway, but I was curious to see what would happen. After 20 minutes of gameplay with the fan at full blast, the temperature dropped dramatically to 53 degrees Celsius, even lower than the stock fan at idle. So I guess you could use this as a way to... Are you sick of this Xbox yet? Too bad, bitch. It has been quite a journey. When you first saw this Xbox in January, it was completely dead. Since then, it was resurrected, modded, made a lot quieter, and had a fully I know a lot of people will except I do have to admit probably something to do with the quieter air installed. So you remember how I had to remove this heatsink bracket to solder the HDMI mod's ribbon cable to the board? The bracket is held in with these 5 plastic pegs, and my understanding was that the best way to remove them was basically to just yank them out. And I mean, it did work. However, for whatever reason, maybe because of the 20-year-old plastic is brittle, pulling them out seems to have kind of smoothed the pegs over, which means they no longer properly clamp onto the board. But you can see here I have all 5 pegs properly clamped in. I can even have one of the heat sinks locked in. But then as soon as I try to lock in the second heatsink, pop, one of the sides pops up. And then try to push that down, another side pops up. Push another one down, another side pops up. It's like the most annoying game of whack-a-mole ever. And even trying to push down all sides at once, basically no amount of pushing this down actually got it to lock into place. Obviously, the result of this is that the CPU and GPU are no longer making a good connection with the heatsink, meaning they are no longer getting properly cooled. Indeed, if left on, the Xbox would overheat and shut off, which sucked. Now, I wasn't really sure what to do about this. I tried using various things to kind of wedge the pegs into place so they wouldn't just pop back up, but nothing really seemed to work. I eventually considered 3D printing some new pegs. After all, they're a pretty simple shape, and I've been wanting to learn how to model for 3D printing for a while now. I even drew up a little diagram with all the measurements that I would need to know. But then I realized these pegs are just holding the bracket to the board. They're effectively just a cheap version of a screw. So using my measurements, I determined what kind of screw width and length would be ideal for this sort of thing, and this is what I ended up with. I got 2 different types just in case. I knew the thicker ones should fit, but just in case they didn't, I got 1 level thinner too. I got those and some nylon washers to prevent the nuts from damaging the board. And the thicker screws did in fact fit, just as my measurements predicted. Here I am reapplying the heatsink grease because why not? And clamping down the heatsinks. Will it clamp in without any of the screws popping up? Well, probably, because that would be really weird for screws to do that. And here we go. Except I had the heatsink clamp in the wrong way. Excellent. Very good. How long does it take me to figure that out? There we go. There we go. Nice. And they clamped in, hell yeah. And I'm kind of happy with that as a solution for the broken pegs. I feel like, why not just do that? Well, here's potentially why not. At first, it didn't seem to fit back in the case when I tried to reinstall the board. This was very confusing to me for a while. Here you can see I'm struggling to sort of get the board to sit properly back in it. Originally I assumed the screws were just too long, but after measuring I realized if anything they should be shorter than this. What ended up being the problem was these. You can see these 4 pegs here, 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 and here. They actually sit right where the pegs do that usually hold the bracket in. And I'm guessing that they're there to just kind of apply extra pressure to clamp the heatsinks down even more. But since these were way thicker than the pegs, they were getting in each other's way. Basically, it wasn't a length issue, it was a girth issue. At first I wondered if I would have to snip them off somehow, make modifications to the case, but actually that turned out not to be necessary. Here's a test fit I did that showed definitively that the nuts could actually fit as long as they were in the right places. So what I realized I could do was, because there's just a little bit of wiggle room in those screw holes, I could just, while they were loose, push them outwards towards the corner and then screw them in and keep them as far away from the center as possible. It then sat nicely inside of those case ridges. Okay, so that was the heatsink fiasco. Thankfully, a fairly simple solution. It was a little intimidating for a while because I wasn't sure how much effort would be required to actually resolve this cleanly. But there were still some further modifications that I wanted to make from here. One was removing the DVD drive. We know from the first episode that it was broken anyway, and it also appears to be the last major noise-making component. It makes just a little whirring sound on startup, which would be nice to get rid of. It also weighs a fair bit and takes up a lot of space, but we couldn't remove it before because a regular Xbox will actually throw a fatal error if the DVD drive isn't present. Even if it's soft modded, the software doesn't actually get loaded until after the hardware is checked, so there's nothing you can do to stop it. But now that this Xbox is mod chipped, we can actually disable the DVD check at the kernel level and then ditch the DVD drive forever. Sort of. Most of you probably know that iconic Xbox logo on the front is actually a part of the DVD drive, so unless we want a big gap in its place, we will need to salvage just that bit. But speaking of mod chips, did you know you can build your own with this video's sponsor, PCBWay? That's right, with their quick order services, all you have to do is upload the Gerbers for OpenZeanium or any
What's good, everybody? It's your boy Golan Beast here. Now, I've been receiving a lot of YouTube sponsorship opportunities via email, and it turns out that some of them are straight up scams. Now, these ain't just any scam. This is a scam that can take control of your computer.
Somewhere. Oh, Villager Trading Hall. These all, they look kind of inhumane. From my research, it seems that most people just try to cram a bunch of villagers into a tiny, ugly space, and I want to do something a little bit different, so stick around and see how I build the ultimate villager trading hall. First, I gotta get rid of the old iron farm.
Hello, and welcome to my new 1.18 Let's Play of Minecraft. Well, that's slightly untrue. It's actually... Since it's the first day of a new world, we have to gather some basic materials, and since it's hardcore, we need to get some armor as soon as possible. Nice. Now, contrary to popular belief, leather armor is not actually the strongest armor in the game. Enchanted netherite is, so that's our goal for today. But of course, we still have to cover the basics like getting a bed and creating our first wooden pickaxe just so we can get our first stone pickaxe. And of course, the always necessary coal for torches. And then we just need to keep exploring until we find a village. Oh, hey, look, there's a village right there. Now, I'm sure they don't need all of these bales of hay, so we can take it and turn it into bread for ourselves. And we could give some of it back, too. And I think we'll need this composter, so thank you very much. So one thing that I'm hoping to do with this village is employ all of these villagers as either farmers or fletchers or weaponsmiths, armorers, so we can trade a bunch of sticks for a bunch of diamond armor. What the heck? Do you think they know what I'm planning on doing with them? Like, they know why I'm taking all the beds? Probably not. Let's finish gathering up beds and setting up this village. And after that productive first day, tomorrow we can work on a villager trading hall and iron farm. So let's first set up the area where all of the farmers will grow food. And let's kill this golem so we can get a bucket. Huh, I guess a pickaxe is not the greatest weapon.
私の血のごとく
Welcome back to my laboratory where safety is number one priority. Where safety is number one priority.
ゴミのように惨めに果てろ
You know, some of these things take way too long to clip into the really fast time lapses, so I'm gonna be skipping some things like mining this dirt and trading sticks with villagers. I'm gonna trade a lot of sticks, okay? You don't want to see it. It's too much. If we move the bell over by the farm, then the villagers should stick around here instead of wandering around all the time. Hopefully this one will go a little bit faster than last time. Yeah, we're definitely gonna use axes from now on. I feel a little bit bad about my blatant thievery, so let's pull a Mr. Beast and just give these people a ton of free shit. Oh, stop. You're too kind. Hello, tall man. Bye. Always running out of shovels. Oh, what are they doing? I feel like I shouldn't watch this. We are going to need a lot of flint for a lot of fletching tables, so let's hope we can do this fast. It's gonna take a bit. Whew, my arm is tired from swinging that shovel. And now we can finally start on our beautiful villager trading hall. Like I alluded to earlier, we're going to need a lot of sticks. Like, oh, you don't even understand. It's so many sticks. We can now take some time to bring some cows over so we can skin them alive. Make books out of their corpses. That's not pleasant sounding either. It's what's gonna happen though. I'm sorry. So, as you can see, it is truly a lot of stick trades, and this is not enough emeralds. We're going to need several stacks more, so if you ever wonder where all of the emeralds come from, it is from a lot of stick trading that is just not going to be in the video because it's super boring. If you want, maybe I can release a video of only stick trades, but that would be psychotic, so I don't think I'm going to. But if you really want that, I guess leave a comment or subscribe and have fun. Oh, would you look at that. We're going back to the woods to get more sticks. Hey, at least there's this lava pool here that we could use for our iron farm. We should probably test to see how hot this is. And I can't pick it up? Oh, I'm an idiot. So let's get around to that iron farm. I think I made this a little too deep. There we go. And now that this part is finished, we need to get some adult villagers in here. These dang kids are always getting in my way. I think we have to take one of them. We'll go with 2 adults, then I guess we just have to wait for the youngest one to grow up, which might cause a problem.
ゴミのように惨めに果てろ。
Yeah, so like I thought, the kid got stuck in the boat, so we're gonna have to take some drastic measures and put in a temporary barrier so he can't get out while he grows up. And then we'll come back and finish the iron farm. Quickly checking where the villagers are so we can dig the trench for the golems to spawn in and die in. I mean, I brought them into the world, so I'm gonna take them out. That was a little too deep. And with that, we just have to add the water, and we're just about... Ah! I am perfectly calm.
自分のやれることをやるだけだ。
See, that was just a small nuisance. We can easily fix this.
ちょうど体を動かしたかったところだ。
And now that we finally have the water in, let's see where those creepers came from.
惨めに果てろ。
I think somewhere over here. We're gonna use these poppies as just a little sign of danger and hope that that stops the creepers from showing up.
私の血のごとく。
It appears that the poppies did not work, so let's just close this area off in a significantly more permanent fashion. And now that the baby villager is all grown up, the only thing left to do is to get a zombie villager in here so these guys can start spawning golems out of pure fear. Pure fear. Pure fear? Pure fear. Pure fear. Pure fear. I think I got it. You know, I don't think we need these blocks to suffocate the golems since we got the lava earlier. Ooh, now we're in business. Okay. So we can finally get around to getting some diamond armor from these armorers now that we can do the iron trade to level them up. Oh, we ran out of emeralds very quickly. You were definitely going to need to do more stick trades, but we're looking pretty good so far. And we just gotta level this guy up and get the last 2 pieces of diamond armor. Which, of course, in order to be able to afford all of the things that we need, we gotta chop these trees down.
Wow.
And we'll also go for a similar process with the toolsmith and weaponsmith so we can get some pickaxes and a sword. You may notice as I'm expanding this trading hall that there's a bunch of librarian villagers. I'm not really going to put that in the video because it's just tedious to get them to sell the books that you want. Just know that we got a decent mending trade, which will pop up later on. Now, we just have to cover up their heads so the zombies stop trying to kill them at nighttime. We'll make this all look pretty in the future. And now that we have a complete set of diamond armor and tools, I am no longer afraid to go mining. So, we shall go look for diamonds so we can get an enchanting table out of the way. You know, with how random all of these dirt blocks are down here, I'm pretty sure this Enderman has been stuck in this pit for a while. Anyways, let's get to mining. Okay, so this definitely has to be a copper ore vein, right? I've never found one before, but I don't think there's any other way to get a block of raw copper, right? That's pretty neat. We gotta make a quick pit stop and drop some things off, and then we'll head back to look for diamonds.